This is an important afternoon. This is an important meeting, and I do want to acknowledge all of you guys who are here present. That says a lot of what you are here for, wanting to really understand the plans that we have, not only as a school district, but also as a community. So I think it's important that we're here forming part of the conversation, the nationwide conversation that we've been having for the past 3 weeks and beyond, right? So it was important for us to put together a community forum for us to be able to share with you guys information in regards to what we're doing as a district, and also how is it that we're collaborating with other partners that we're going to get an opportunity to introduce, as well as what that partnership entails, right? How are we supporting each other? Buenas tardes, voy a tratar de resumir la información en español, quizás no palabra por palabra, pero sí darle lo que es la información más importante, ¿no? Esta tarde estamos aquí porque queremos ser parte de la conversación de lo que ha estado pasando por las últimas 3 semanas, ¿no? Hemos visto muchas cosas en lo que son las redes sociales que obviamente han afectado a las escuelas, no nada más al nivel de condado, pero obviamente al nivel nacional, y pues es importante que nosotros estemos aquí compartiendo lo que son los planes que nosotros tenemos como distrito, al igual la información que podemos comunicar no nada más con el Departamento de Policía, pero los demás agencias que tenemos partnerships. Y me va a pasar mucho, voy a estar doblando el inglés y el español bastante. La presentación que tenemos para ustedes va a estar en inglés y en español, y como les digo, va a ser importante para nosotros nada más resumir en español, porque queremos respetar lo que son los tiempos, ¿no? We want to make sure that we respect your time. Today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be sharing information from the police department to showcase what they are doing to really mitigate the situations that arise in regards to the social media threats or any sort of threat that comes to our schools, right? In addition to that, we'll get the opportunity to share ourselves. The District of Somerton, sharing our protocols that we follow to ensure that all of our school communities are safe, right? So lo que vamos a hacer ahora, vamos a compartir información del parte del Departamento de Policía de Somerton. Ellos obviamente van a dar información sobre cuáles son los pasos que ellos siguen para asegurar que nos ayuden como comunidad a mantener nuestras escuelas en bien. Después Ms. Kim y yo vamos a tomarnos la tarea de darles la información de cómo nosotros como distrito respondemos, ¿no? a lo que son estas emergencias, ¿no? En caso de eso es lo que vamos a hacer. Al final vamos a tener un espacio para contestar preguntas, ¿no? Las preguntas que tenemos unas preguntas que fueron entregadas por la comunidad, ¿no? Por el link que dimos, y vamos a contestar esas preguntas, al igual que si hay tiempo vamos a continuar contestando las preguntas que varios de ustedes pudieron hacer, ¿no? Al entrar a lo que es este foro. One of the things that I do want to share before we start, and Kim is right here. She's my partner in action, and she's been right along, not only in my transition into this district, but also through everything that we've gone through as a district, and not only as a district, but also as a community. It's been important to rely on someone so involved and so important for our community and for our district. So publicly, I want to thank Ms. Kim for just being that partner. So thank you so much. Before we introduce our panel, I do want to share something, right? So the idea of tonight is really reflecting, right? Taking in what is it that we're doing as a district, taking in what is it that we're doing as a community. It's important that you see that we are trying everything that we have to do to ensure that our kids and our community is safe, all right? But one of the things that I'm going to ask you as parents and as community is also to take the time to reflect. How is it that as a parent can I support the efforts in making sure that our kids are safe? A lot of the things that happened in the past 3 weeks really happened based on rumors, right? Based on oversharing things that we saw on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And so it just became a bigger and bigger and louder problem, right? So we can, and that was an analogy that I told Ms. Kim later a couple of days ago. We can put a big bubble over our schools, but if we don't control the noise around it, then we can have the best plans, but we have to make sure that we include what is it that we're doing as parents. Bien rapidito, lo que les quiero contar rápido en español es esto, ¿no? Básicamente les vamos a explicar lo que estamos haciendo como distrito y como comunidad para mantener a nuestros estudiantes a salvo. Estamos haciendo grandes cosas como distrito y como comunidad. Vamos a tomar sus ideas en caso de que haya ideas. No hay planes perfectos, pero estamos abiertos a lo que son las ideas que ustedes nos puedan traer. Lo que les quiero comentar es que quiero que reflexionen. Quiero que reflexionen, ¿no? Como padres, como comunidad, ¿qué es lo que podemos hacer nosotros para ayudar en estos planes? Acabo de explicar en inglés, ¿no? Que podemos poner a nuestras escuelas en una burbuja y hacer el mejor plan del mundo, pero si no ayudamos a apagar lo que es el ruido, ¿no? Que se hizo con todos esos rumores, ningún plan va a funcionar efectivamente. Hay que reflexionar a cómo vamos haciendo esta presentación y de esa manera podemos contestarle las preguntas de una mejor manera. ¿Okay? Muchísimas gracias por estar aquí. And Ms. Kim, you want to introduce?
That's good. I want to just thank you so much for coming this evening. If you're listening online or you're here present, we really appreciate it. The time that it takes to put these things together, to listen to what we've done, what we are doing, and what we have done really is important. And together as a community, we keep our community safe. So with that being said, we're going to move on to our presentation, and I know he's going to translate for me.
Simplemente es que me está dando el agradecimiento, ¿no? Poner un foro como este público toma mucho trabajo y la verdad tenemos que agradecerle a todo el equipo que ha estado atrás de este proyecto, ¿no? Desde mantenimiento, tecnología, es importante reconocer que es un trabajo, no nada más para organizar el foro, pero obviamente para asegurar que estamos siguiendo estos planes para continuar manteniendo la seguridad de nuestros estudiantes como prioridad. Quiero, obviamente, I do want to take the time to acknowledge who's here supporting us. Thank you so much beforehand, before I mention you by name. Thank you so much for being here. It's important that you are part of this conversation. You are part of this community, so it's important that you're able to support us in giving that message as a full front. All right? Do you want to help me with this?
So we have with us from Yuma Union High School District, Mr. Brianza and Bo Gonzalez. We thank you for being here. So representing Somerton High School as well. We have our board president, Juan Castillo. Chief Juarez from Somerton Police Department, great support. Sergeant Hickson from the County Sheriff. Thank you. We have Michael Fila and Paul Deanda from Cocopah Tribal Safety Commission, I'll say, the group. And then Lieutenant John McKinley, thank you so much for being here from the Cocopah Police Department. So, this evening we have a lot of information for you, and we very much appreciate everyone being here. This is a united front. Together, we work behind the scenes to make sure that we're responding and doing things in the appropriate manner for the utmost safety of our community. So we thank you so much for being here.
Otra vez, muchísimas gracias a todos los que están aquí representando a la comunidad. Tenemos representación de la high school, tenemos representación no nada más de la policía de Somerton, pero también del departamento de sheriff, al igual que de Cocopah también tenemos representación. So, muchísimas gracias. We're going to jump in, right? Our first part of the presentation tonight is having Chief Juarez really talk to you guys about, from her perspective or from the department, the police department's perspective, what is it that we're doing and how are we collaborating? So thank you so much, Chief Juarez.
Good afternoon. Am I going to have to translate, or I can say it all in English? Or I can translate? Everybody speaks English for the most part, right? Yes. Do I have any Spanish? ¿Alguien que no entienda inglés? ¿Que pueda levantar la mano, por favor? ¿Hay dos o tres? Okay. So I'll do, you'll see a slide that is right in front of you. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself. My name's Araceli Juarez. I'm the Chief of Police. I've been here for about 6 years. I've managed the police department, and one of the things that we've been dealing with is these phone calls And I want to clarify something before I go through the presentation. One of the things that a lot of people think or believe in these past 3 weeks is that we've been receiving threats. The Somerton Police Department has not received one single threat. We've investigated about 9 cases of reports of children sharing information, about photos being shared, but we have been able, in the 9 cases that we've investigated, we haven't been able to prove that there was a threat to any of our schools. A lot of sharing of students to students, from parents to parents, so just a lot of information out there, a lot of vague information, a lot of rumors, and I just wanted to put that out there. I know the Yuma Police Department did investigate over 250 cases, and they were very overwhelmed. A lot of it, same thing, was sharing and a lot of rumors. So I'm gonna go briefly through these slides that you'll see in front of you, and then I'm gonna give you a little bit of data of some of the stuff that the police department does in training to have some of the SROs out here and to have some of the officers. Can everybody hear me well in the back? All right, so some of the things that we've seen is a lot of increase in just threats and social media, just like I mentioned. Beginning of September was chaotic for all of us. Our officers were responding to multiple calls to the schools, multiple calls of shots fired. Some of those shots fired were the gentlemen that are working the fields, shooting up towards the birds. Every September we get shots called all the time off of Jefferson Street, right behind Bingham where the golf course is at. So that's something very common for us. We responded to those, and a lot of people, because they were very scared, staff was scared, students were scared. That's why I made the recommendation that school be suspended for those 2 days. During that same time, we responded to the high school in San Luis to assist the San Luis city with some shots fired in one of their schools. At that same time, we had another accident on Avenue G and Highway 95. At the same moment, we had shots fired off of the but the Jefferson Street. So all those 3 incidents really, really shook up our small community. And I want to assure you that most of the officers did respond to the high school in San Luis, but we made sure that we kept some here. I stayed here, the captain stayed here, and at least 2 officers stayed here. Our communication supervisor is present with me at this time. She's sitting in the audience. I made sure that she was there, and she had 2 dispatchers working with her at the same time. So just to kind of give you an idea that we're trying our best, like the superintendent said, to make sure that we are covering also our priority, which is the city of Somerton. Now, some of the sharing you'll see in the first slide, this was throughout Arizona. We were getting messages from Oro Valley, we were getting messages from everywhere. We were getting a lot of phone calls. A lot of people were very concerned. Who's doing the slides? You were? Okay. So on the next slide, you'll see a lot of the media sharing was going on throughout the entire United States. It wasn't just in Yuma or Somerton. San Luis had the same ones. The sheriff's office also, I believe, had some of those reports as well. The trend was just out of control, and it's more to do with social media. And a lot of the kids are sharing information. And I know I'm gonna keep repeating some of this, but that's what it is. Minor changes. Some of the targets were the smallest communities, not the bigger ones. There was some up in the Phoenix area. We were able to commit to addressing a lot of these issues. Some of you guys know we have 3 SROs throughout the school. We have Officer Sazueta at the high school. We have Officer Danny Marcus, who is here right up at the front, and we have Officer Castillo at the middle school. We're able to do that through a grant that we're working with the school district in collaboration with them. We're able to put the 3 officers into all of these schools, which helps us control a little bit of the behavior of the kids, and it also helps us address immediate cases that we have on site. Some of the cases, like you'll know, are mostly child-related, because we're dealing with all minors. But they're able to handle that on scene, so it doesn't pull some of the officers from the road. That's what we were seeing. One of the other things I can assure you, I can guarantee you that one of the things that we do also at the police department, I'm covering some of the information that's on the slide. We have a training coordinator. The training coordinator is in charge of making sure that we have training for all the officers. So I'm gonna hit on some of the, slide number 2, where I ask about ensuring the safety and security of our students, teachers, and the staff. That is one of our priorities. You will see at every event, or at least every event that the school has invited us to, we try to show up. We try to have good connection with the kids. We try to have our officers out there to make sure that kids know us, they feel comfortable with us. If we move to the slide, the next slide where we show data information, I think I might have skipped some of those. No, I'm on page 4. So prevalence of threats and rumors. Okay, so this one's going to show you a little bit of how these threats are coming through. If you look at the graph, the threats to the schools are very low. They're at the very bottom. We've been very fortunate, not like other schools where we've had minimal responses of the most of the things that we get primarily at the middle school is kids with pipes. Rarely do we get kids with a knife, very rare. So our schools are very safe, and that goes to show that the school district is doing a wonderful job of making sure that all these kids have the expectations before the school begins. The study analyzes over 50 states, so all that data is based, most of the shootings, if you look at the scale, most of the shootings are not happening at any of our schools. They're happening at workplaces, unfortunately, and they're happening in other places, but it's not primarily the schools, and these are studies from the FBI. So I know Mr. I forgot your name, buddy, I'm sorry. No, my buddy who used to be in juvenile. Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez will hit. I remember him from Bo because we started working together as kids. So, but he will hit a lot on what the school does, and I'll cover a little bit about it too as well. If we move on to the next slide, some of the concerns, I know we're gonna have time for questions at the end, but some of the concerns that, some of the stuff that we're doing is technology. It's mostly school. The school is catching some of the stuff. They might be able to share a little bit more information about one of the cases that we had during the week where we caught information because of the firewalls that they have in their computers. And we have a great communication and working collaboration with the school district where they're able to call us immediately. Officer Castillo's on site for the middle school, which is our busiest school. So one of the other things that we do in case Officer Castillo's not on site is we send an officer out there to do walkthroughs. We can't keep the officer there, but we send him out to do walkthroughs. I apologize if I'm skipping on some of the information for the slides. I know they'll make it available for you, but I wanted to address a little bit more, give you a little bit more of a feel about what happens in the community of Somerton. All this information will be available to you. One of the things that we're asking the parents that are here today is to keep an eye on your kids' cell phones, to see what they're posting, talk to them, have conversations with them before they go to school, when they come back from school. I'll share with you a personal thing that I always share with my son. My son's 17 years old, but I always make sure that I ask him, what are you gonna do if there's a shooter in school? And one of the things that I tell him is, you need to make sure that you know how to hide. You have to hide. And some of the practicals that we've done in the past at the middle school, the kids at the middle school, I know they had been trained. Because when we responded in one of the practicals to the middle school, all the kids, there was nobody. When we walked in there, like we were the shooters, there was not one single kid outside in the grounds. And we were checking and we were looking. We found one kid, and this is a couple years ago, but we found one kid. He was in one of the toilet stalls, standing on top of the toilet. And I remember I got there and I said, hey, it's okay to come out, we're done with the drill. And he did not speak one single word. So I knew the Somerton School District had done a wonderful job of making sure he was trained. And I said, kept on knocking on the door, he would not budge. And I said, buddy, it's over. I'm an officer, the drill's over, you need to come out. He came out, and when we talked to him, we asked him, what happened? Why were you in the restroom? Because all the other kids were in the classrooms. He said, I was going to the restroom, and I heard the drill, and I knew what I had to do, so he had to hide in the restroom. I made sure that I talked to the principal at the time. I said, hey, you guys gotta recognize this kid. This kid did not make one single noise, even after we insisted that we were the police and we were done with the drill. Wonderful job. The other data that I wanna share with you is some of the training that we send out to the officers of the Somerton Police Department is we ensure that they're trained, not only that they're trained as active shooter responders, but we have several instructors, including myself, that are able to train the officers on a yearly basis. We spend just about 5 hours on our computers, each and every one of us, making sure that annually we complete a course of Active Shooter 1, Active Shooter 2. We do law enforcement response to active shooter incidents, and we do active shooter preparation and response for schools. So those are some of the things that we do. We do this annually. We make sure, as a small department, our biggest backup is gonna be probably, the immediate backup is gonna be the tribal police department, who are gonna respond to assist us immediately. And our second major backup after that is gonna be the sheriff's office. And you'll see Mr. Hicks is sitting there. They're gonna be the ones that respond immediately. And after that, we're gonna get 30 or 40, we believe we're gonna get 30 or 40 Border Patrol agents on site immediately. I did have a meeting this morning with all the local agency heads, and that was one of the things that Chief Godfrey from the U.S. Border Patrol assured us, that he will respond, they will be responding to assist us. And you're gonna see a lot if, I'm gonna say this, God forbid something happens, but if it were to happen, all the people that you see at this table, starting from Mr. Duran all the way to our tribal police department, everybody is here because we work closely in collaboration to make sure that all our kids are safe. A lot of the staff, well, myself and some of the staff that sits here, or the personnel that's accompanying me today, have students in their schools here in Somerton. So it's our priority. We are local, we care for the community, we have great connections with the community. One of the other things that we work with is, in recent months, we work closely with the tribal police department, and we brought over, in collaboration with Lieutenant McKinley, we brought a rescue task force team training. That was over 3 days of training that we did at the Somerton School District, going back to the collaboration with the school district. They allowed us to use the gym at the middle school, where we worked with our fire department. We worked with tribal officers. We had several staff. We had role players where we were simulating what is going to be our response to any of our schools. And some of the simulation included the fire department extricating, we have to say it, right? Because we have to practice for it, extricating bodies from the school. So I'll share, and I'll finish telling you my story. One of the things that I tell my son is, you hide and you run. But if you get the chance and you got 2 or 3 people that are willing, you're gonna attack this person. And that is my son's life. But I'm making a point of saying, we, the Somerton Police Department, and the people that sit up with me, we are willing to do whatever is necessary to protect our kids, to protect our young kids that are vulnerable. I look at this door right here, and I was part of the school board for a lot of times, and I was here in the school premises a lot of times, but I imagine all the little kids. And we're talking about kinder, first grade, second grade, all the little humans that come to this school. Not only this school, but the rest of the schools. They are a priority. Continuing on my training that the officers have, they have, we have over, during this training that we did with tribal, we had over 8 modules of training, how to neutralize and mitigate active shooter events. We did this again with fire department, medical personnel as well. Some of the things that we've been able to obtain through sponsorship from Amanda Aguirre and from additional grants is shields, vests, helmets, because we are in a small community and a lot of times the city's budget is small. We're always looking for those grants. I know former Chief De Anda with the fire department, he was able to bring a lot of the equipment to the personnel from the fire department as well, so they could be ready to assist us if they had to go into situations like that. That is some of the stuff that I have. One of the last things that I want to reiterate before I turn the microphone over is, in the past, I don't know if you know, but in the past in some of those schools, the officers that arrive, for example, Officer Danny Marcus, who might be at any given moment by herself at Bravey Soto School, she is trained that she doesn't have to wait for nobody. She is trained that she has to go forward and that she immediately needs to neutralize the threat. So, and they know, the SROs that are here, including our sheriff deputy that is here, they know that they have to be the first ones going through that door, and that is something that they're willing to do. And I'll share my 2 last lines with you. As a leader, I'm willing to lead somebody that's willing to do that. Somebody that's willing to go in there, and you know what? They're gonna risk their lives to neutralize immediately the threat, and then we're gonna come afterward. The rest of us are gonna come right behind them to do whatever we need to do. So with this, I'm gonna finish. We're trained to enter solo if backups is not immediately available, and there is evidence of an active killing. That's all I have. I hope I've responded to some of your questions with the information that I provided, but I know we're gonna have additional time to respond. I am at your service at the Somerton Police Department. You can always reach me through my staff. You can set up an appointment to speak to me, and I would like to continue to serve you. It is a pleasure to serve you as a chief, and I'd like to continue to serve you as a member of this community as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank Thank you so much, Chief Juarez. That was great information. And I'll be honest with you, when, I started this, venture with Somerton and I met with Chief Juarez, she gave me her cell phone number and said, call me 24/7. And I have. We've had several times, huh, Ms. Kim? Any sort of, and we're gonna go into our presentation, any sort of situation that we've had, the first person to call is Chief. Rose, thank you so much for the service that you provide to our community, and obviously working with our administrators. I want to give a special shout out to Ruth. Thank you so much for helping us out with translating. I know there's a couple of guests that needed the translation, so that'll help us in moving things along. So I appreciate it. If there's anyone else that needs Spanish translation, we'll find someone to support you in understanding what we're conveying for you guys. All right. So we're going to jump in. We want to showcase what we are doing as a district. And I must give really credit to the Somerton School District, as it has been doing amazing prior to my 3 months that I've been part of the amazing team. So I need to make sure that, thank you, yesterday. I just want to make sure that I acknowledge that a lot of the great things, as we were sitting down to reflect on what Somerton is doing, a lot of these great practices have been in place for many, many years. So I want to make sure that we reiterate that and reassure the community that we're doing great things for our kids. So Ms. Kim will jump into some of the things that we definitely are doing as a district. So one of the things, many of the things that we're doing, thank you for watching, we want to jump in as to what you would be able to see if you were to go into one of our schools, right? A lot of the things that we are doing is just preventative, right? So all of our schools, they're gated. So that's a great thing. All of our schools, the only entry point to our schools is the main office. And so if you go and visit our schools, you would only be able to just enter the school through the main office. There is a strict system of having you guys, the parents, really check in. You have to present your ID to ensure that they vet you as the parent of a child. And for the most part, if you're picking up a student, they will bring the child to you. You won't have access to the school as far as the office. One of the things that we also have, with the exception of one school, and we're currently working on today, we're looking for actual cost of this particular access control, is that, right? So the school itself, if someone was to want to continue on aside from the lobby area, they have to be buzzed into the rest of the campus, with the exception of one school. And trust me, trust us, we're working to make sure that we get that as soon as possible. Other things that we have that are very important to acknowledge are the service of our SROs, right? So we currently have 3 SROs, and they're doing a phenomenal job. One of the things that we have to acknowledge is that it's not only the guard format of like carrying a gun and looking like the authority, which they are, and that's great in the event that things would get bad, but they also are amazing connectors to our students, right? So they have counseling background. They go through extensive training to ensure that they connect and that they are of service for our students and our community. So they're not, they are very tough, and they should be, right? But one of the great things about it is that they have true connections with their students. Students are not SMS, Somerton Middle School has one full-time, Officer Castillo is full-time at SMS, and then we do share Officer Marquez and Deputy Paz with the other elementary schools. Okay. Other things that we want to acknowledge are all of our schools are equipped with surveillance cameras, right? And we are still constantly assessing our schools to ensure that if we need additional cameras, we're going to make sure that we get those cameras. But right now, the cameras that we do have are obviously in specific points to ensure that we protect the campus. Administrators, as well as our SROs, I believe we're working on making sure that they all have access to these cameras in the event that they need it. So the metal detectors, that was a big question, right? We don't have metal detectors, but our SROs, in the event that we do need something for further investigation, they do have metal wands, varas, para figurar si traen algún tipo de metal los estudiantes, ¿no? So they do have it in the event that we need them. They are there to be utilized. Backpacks. We do, as a district, another question that came up was like, oh, are you guys doing backpack checks? By policy, we are able to, if we have a suspicion, we go in and we check backpacks. And we do those periodically as well to ensure that our students are not carrying, things that they're not supposed to. And one of our recommendations, which I'm pretty sure is going to come up, is parents, please make sure that you also check backpacks, right? Not only for like dry burritos at the bottom of the backpack, but to make sure that they're not taking things to the school that they're not supposed to. One of the great things that we do as I jump into this amazing team is I see that the connection, the communication between administration is there. So we take every complaint, every joke, we take it very seriously, and we do a full investigation. From making sure that if it's something that we see as threatening, we make sure that we reach out to the authorities to ensure that they vet to see whether we need further investigation or not, and then we move forward with our discipline.
So when we think of further preventive measures, in our district internally, we follow a very strict discipline matrix and discipline process. So all of our administrators are trained and they're following the investigative process. So we're going to make sure that we're doing what's right. We're not going to assume someone did something. The principals are going to make sure that they're vetting, they're giving due process to all of the students and do what's right. Most of the things like Chief Juarez said, like, Mr. Duran was sharing already, a lot of the things that we have, we need to build connections. So the problems that occur are usually student to student. So we have done a lot of work on anti-bullying. We have our counselors, we have our SROs that have been doing presentations as well, evenings for parents throughout the last few years, as well as teaching our students through the day and working with our staff. So when we think about that, that's a preventive measure. We have our threat assessments, we have cease and desist forms. Those are really important for us to have for our students, because then when we're mediating with students, we're able to really come to a good agreement, teaching kids how to be good friends, because typically most of the problems come from student to student issues. So when we think about our emergency operations plans, Chief Juarez already shared, Mr. Duran, we have all of those things in place, and we're constantly refining. We're trying to stay current. We practice our drills, our lockdowns, our evacuations. All of our policies and procedures are in place and they're transparent. Our board has approved those and they see those on a continual basis, and so does our administration. We have a district safety committee, which has been our maintenance director and some other key individuals. And what spurs from those meetings is that we've done a lot of fixing up of things. So like Mr. Duran said, our fencing, all our schools are gated and things like that. Well, in the last few years, Mr. Velasco has moved some of our fencing from short fences to tall fences. We've done some restructuring. We've walking around to make sure that we're doing things right. Keys, so we've made sure that we've collected all those keys, that we know who has keys. We're making sure that things are safe and done well. We also have our crisis counseling team. So with our grant, just like we have our SROs, that same safety grant we were able to write for, and we have 3 counselors that are paid out of the grant and 2 that we fund ourselves out of the district. So we have 5 total. And so they're able to support our students. They've had critical different trauma-informed training and lots of different things that they've been going to help them to respond to students and staff in the case of any type of an event, but also just to support students on a regular basis.
Just to add really quickly on that, some of the questions, or a lot of the questions that were asked through the link, had to do with our EOP, our Emergency Operation Plan. And the questions were like, do we practice them? Yes, we do. It's a yearly practice that we have to make sure that every drill is practiced. Have we practiced this year? Let's take a note. Yes, we have, but not all of the schools, because we just started school. If you can really think about it, we just started school. So it's a yearly practice that we have in place. We had to suspend a couple of schools because of what was happening, but we're back on track to make sure that these drills are practiced moving forward. So to continue on other preventative measures, we talked about the counseling program. In the event that there's a situation, the counselors are ready to act, right? So even though these counselors are said to be in particular campuses, if we need to make sure that we move counselors around to support in any sort of trauma or a situation in a particular campus, they know their role on how to resolve or support that school. So we talked about this capturing kids' hearts. We have a lot of systems in place within our school to ensure that we create a positive environment for our students, right? Like Ms. Say mentioned, some of these problems are based student by student. So by having these systems like capturing kids' heart, PBIS, really supports us in making sure that we streamline the way we treat each other, right? And building that trust to wanting to reach out to our adults to ensure that we report things, we build their character. So those are really important things that we do as a preventative measure. Oh, and obviously we work closely with our community partners, right? So not only with our Somerton Police Department, but we have partnerships with Campesinos Sin Fronteras. We have partnerships with other partners.
Sunset Health Clinic in Yuma County.
Yeah, so Yuma County Health Department and Sunset, we partner up with them to get some of the services that they have as outreach programs. And then another thing that I wanted to point out that was brought out in previous forums per se, parents' education, right? So a lot of the times as parents, we don't understand what to look for in a cell phone or whatnot. So we're developing programs within after school, tutoring and other programs that bring education to our parents. So our call to action and to the public is making sure that you sign up for these particular programs and courses to ensure that you understand what it is that you should be looking for in your child's cell phone and how to support them better.
So some of the other things, this one still doesn't like me. Okay, some of the other things that the district is doing, next steps, we're looking to get more grants. We want to make sure that we actually get a grant writer so they can keep a lot of the things going that some of us have written for. So we want to continue that. We're looking to fund an additional SRO out of our own district funds as well. So we're looking into that as well. And we'll continue to train our staff, parents, and students. So that's something that we're going to discuss a little bit further about the training that's going to occur.
So nuestro compromiso, our commitment is to continue to work with our, Somerton Police Department, Sheriff, and everyone who's here, really part of this conversation. It is really important that we acknowledge that without that community, without that group effort, we really can't do a lot. So we have to make sure that we commit ourselves to that. We are emergency communication. So the emergency communication process that we have is we follow a process, and we want you to trust process, right? So a lot of parents want to know, what is the emergency operation plan? We want to know the details of it. We unfortunately can give you up to a point of these emergency operation plans. We can't really give you the details because in the event that we have to utilize these plans, there's a lot of information that we wouldn't preview you to it because it's an emergency plan that we have to be able to have so that no one knows about it. But parents have been asking, like, well, what parts of these plans can we make sure that you can share with us? We can definitely work with the school level administrators to select the areas that you guys can be part of that conversation so that you know. But what we asked of you is that you become really aware of what we're doing and that there is a process that we're following and we are asking you to trust it. All right, the communication, there was a lot of questions on communication. I know Ms. Kim is going to talk about it. How are we communicating as a district? So there is a system as how we communicate. Has it been perfect? Maybe not. Maybe we slip here and there, but we're working to make sure that we have it perfect. But some of the ways that we communicate are as follows.
So parents, we really need you to keep that emergency contact up to date at your school sites. Please, 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 because we are going to be sending things through our messaging system. You'll get texts, you'll get notifications that way. We have our website. We do use our social media, and you've seen a lot more this year. All of our schools, our district is really pushing out a lot of information. Please get connected to that. We have our YouTube, and all of the classrooms, teachers use Class Dojo, so there's going to be something direct there. And so there are some things that, you know, as we discuss what you need to know, a lot of these things we've discussed already. You know, make sure that you know and you help our community know that our schools are practicing. We're practicing, we're making sure that things are done well, our plans are in place, we're updating continually, we're trying to stay current, but everything is there. And law enforcement, as Chief has mentioned, they work with us. All of the law enforcement have our emergency operation plans for each of our sites on their computers. So if there's an event that they have to respond to, they've got it. They've got the maps of our schools, they know right where they need to go and what they need to do, and we trust them. So when our chief tells us something, we're going to listen, because she has information, and they're looking at things from a different lens, and we want to ensure safety. We cannot share specifics, as Mr. Duran said. So the questions asked about, we want to know what's on the plans, what are you doing here and there? Well, we can't divulge those specifics or different codes or things that might be told from the administrator to the teacher. They need to know that, because we don't want that to be out there for everyone. If there's a certain place that kids are supposed to hide or to evacuate to, we will know that, everyone here, but the whole community may not need to know that, because we want to ensure safety. We want to ask that you allow time for law enforcement and district administration to investigate. If there is something that we are dealing with, we are dealing with it. No one is sitting there doing nothing. We are all working on it. We're waiting for the right communication. Our officers, our chief, our sheriff, everybody is involved. And at times on big things, they are all involved. Border Patrol, Cocopah Police, everybody is doing what they need to do. So oftentimes we're making sure that our schools are safe, we're waiting for direction, and then we're gonna do the right thing. So please trust that process. As Mr. Duran said, we wanna make sure that we're doing what's right. So when you know, as we discussed about social media, parents, please help us. Make sure you're checking. The phone needs to sleep when the family goes to sleep, please. A lot of times these issues occur at a 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning text that's been remade, and social media goes wild. Please, when you put your kids to sleep, take the phone. Let the phone sleep too. That's going to be so helpful for us. If you see something, report it to your administration, to your school site principal immediately. And we've had some parents do that of late, and it's been wonderful. The principal has been able to immediately take care of business, investigate, get the SROs involved, and we were able to take care of whatever it is, finding out there's no threat. However, we want to make sure our kids are representing themselves well and not spreading information that's not good, right? Any type of gossip. During an emergency, please, 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 don't add to the story. Only repost what district administration or law enforcement press release has put out. When you add things to it, the story grows, and it doesn't help us. It causes panic, and we're trying to keep our schools nice and calm. In fact, when we just had our shelter in place, our soft lockdown at Sun Valley the other day, the students thought that it was just a practice. Everything was good, because in the classroom, they're still teaching, they're still doing what they need to do, and all was well. Outside, all of these individuals were taking care of business and making sure that everything was fine. But inside the school, the birds were chirping, okay? The kids were happy. And that's the magic of what happens with our school site principals and our teachers. They're trained to do that, and they will make sure all of that is taken care of. So even on the outside, you might be seeing and hearing different things. Wait till you get notification from our law enforcement or us, okay? So as we look at the next slide, please report, don't repost, and no gossip. That helps us out quite a bit.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. And again, our commitment to our community and our schools is, by all means, priority is the safety of our community and our students. So we're going to jump into our Q&A portion of tonight. We had several questions. We have them already posted. We'll go through them and we'll invite the members of the panel to jump in. Some of the questions are more geared towards law enforcement, and some of the questions are obviously geared to the school district, which is ourselves and obviously the high school. So we can look at like some of the questions, we had to combine. The first question was, what type of safety drills and scenarios are practiced to prepare staff and students? How often are these conducted? We talked about it, right? So we do practice our EOP on a yearly basis. We practice evacuation minimum at least monthly. We do have lockdowns, and those are practiced 3 times a year, as well as shelter in place, which previously used to be called soft lockdown. That is practiced minimum at least once a year. So these drills we do often to ensure that not only our staff members are prepared, but obviously our students know what to do in the event that this happens. Oh, perfect. The next one, so let's see, can local law enforcement do random searches? So this is gonna be law enforcement now. So you guys, now it's time for you guys to shine, right? Can local law enforcement do random searches with metal detectors or wands to students or anyone entering the schools? Is it illegal, or is it legal, sorry?
I'm sorry. Okay, it is. So as far as doing random searches, those are really left up to the schools. All of us, to include our children, they do have rights against the illegal search and seizure. And just because they're kids doesn't mean we can just go up and randomly search some kids' bags. There has to be credible information that's provided to us that would lead us to believe that a crime is being committed. And then once we're able to articulate that and figure out what's going on with the assistance of the schools, then we can do those things. I think it's important that, we can do wanding. If the school were to say all of a sudden, hey, we want to start wanding the kids, go in there, that's fine, because we're not specifically going into their personal possessions. But as far as just doing random searches, we cannot unless there is information that's provided to us.
Next question we have also for law enforcement. I think we touched on it a little bit. How does law enforcement collaborate with schools for safety purposes? I don't know if you guys or anyone would like to extend. Mr. Bo?
To speak. Okay. Hey, good evening, folks. Henry Gonzalez, Director of Health and Safety with the Yuma Union High School District. As Chief Juarez previously alluded to, she spoke about the training, the tremendous amount of training that her officers go through. Specifically here at Somerton High School, just this past summer, the Yuma Union High School District and Somerton Police Department collaborated together through Lieutenant Causa, our SRO, to provide active shooter training at Somerton High School. Folks, that is critically important because we were able to provide a realistic training environment for those officers. In fact, I believe Cocopah PD, who Chief Juarez referenced as being kind of their backup, was also part of that training. Folks, those officers were able to effectively go through and clear the exact hallways and classrooms to include how the doors open and close, and tactically that is important, and we were able to collaborate together to provide that training for the overall health, wellness, and safety of our students at Somerton High School. And again, that speaks volumes as to the collaboration that exists between the high school, the Somerton High School, but also our law enforcement partners.
Some of the things that we do as a district, we do invite our police officers and also the fire department to really be part of our drills, right? So at least once a year, we invite them to come and really evaluate the way we are running our drills to ensure that we receive any feedback that they may have, that we can obviously put into place to ensure that we increase our plans to ensure that that's all taken care of. So we're also, aside from everything that has already been mentioned, we're keeping them also in the loop to ensure that they give us feedback when we need to continue to grow within our plans. So our next question, can officers permanently stay at schools?
Unfortunately, that is a no. So Yuma County is a pretty wide open county, and Somerton is inside that, along with the city, Welton. And so we do have a lot of schools throughout the whole Yuma region, and to be able to put officers in every single school would take every officer off the street. That's how many schools we have. So I think it's important to understand that we're fortunate that we do now have SROs in the South County. I've got one deputy that runs 2 of the schools, and he goes back and forth every single day. And just like Chief Juarez, she's got the one officer that goes back and forth between the elementary schools, and then one that's permanently at the junior high. So though we can't have them in there full-time, Chief Juarez and the superintendent hit on it. We work so closely together that when the Somerton schools need assistance, my guys will go over there and vice versa to help with whatever situations are going on, no matter how big or small that situation may be. So yeah, that's where we're sitting at right now.
Mr. Brianza?
So I like to address that from a different viewpoint. I do agree with Sergeant Hickson that no, they can't permanently be there. But you notice the SRO for Somerton High School is not here tonight because he's at the high school. And I know the principal Arvizo wishes he could be here tonight, but there's an activity there tonight that requires law enforcement to be there. It's a football game. It's good. But there's a large crowd, and it's about law-related education, and the connections that Officer Zawaita has with the community there is so important. But also at the same time, our SROs are not grant funded. They come out of our budget that we pay for teachers, my salary, Mr. Gonzalez's salary. So in my mind, they're there permanently. But if something happens, they're gone from campus. And I think that's an important thing to recognize is that when something happens here in Somerton, and it's at Soto BTS, Zawaita's not going to be at Somerton High School. So you have to understand it's a commitment to the community that every law enforcement officer, no matter what agency is, to protect the students and the community. I like to think they're there every day, every minute of the day, because we pay their salary. But I can tell you, Chief Juarez will say, well, yeah, but sometimes they're helping out someplace else, and we're perfectly fine with that. But just know it's a commitment that each of our districts have to protect the safety of our students.
Thank you, Mr. Brianza. We did answer the last question already, so we're going to skip ahead. What are the communication protocols for agencies, school administrators, staff, and parents? So the question is, what are the communication protocols for agencies, school administrators, staff, and parents? Between. Mr. Bo?
And just to add to that, in light of recent incidents and kind of the ongoing threat, regular, frequent, ongoing communication took place amongst our law enforcement partners, our school partners, specifically with respect to the decisions that are made as to close a school or keep a school open. We rely very heavily on our law enforcement partners, as Chief Juarez alluded to. They have the investigatory information, right? The intelligence that can then therefore be shared with us at the school district all the way to the highest levels to assist us in making recommendations, to assist us in making decisions as to what safety measures we initiate, but also whether or not we keep a campus closed or open. And again, I can't impress enough about the ongoing, these were, during the past 3 weeks, this was early morning, this was all throughout the day, and sometimes late into the night, discussions with our law enforcement partners and school partners and community partners to put in place efforts to promote the health, wellness, and safety of our students and staff on our campuses.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're going to jump into our next question. How do schools and agencies address miscommunication regarding events? How does a school district and agency prioritize transparency or caution to avoid mistakes? So this is big, right? Sometimes if there is a mistake or misunderstanding, we will be the first one to clarify, right? We have no shame to make sure that we admit to putting out there that something that might be not true. However, a lot of the perception is that there is miscommunication coming out from our schools when, like Chief Juarez said, sometimes we're unable to really give the full story because we can't. And so the community starts thinking about, well, they're lying to us, or they're, thinking about saying other things that they're not supposed to. It really isn't like that. It really is allowing the process to be investigated. So once we have the full answer, the full story, and as much as that we are able to give you, we will be giving you that information.
All right, so the next set of questions came from our parents. What mental health resources are available for students and staff following incidents? And so just as I shared earlier, we have our counseling team. We also use outside agencies as well to support us anytime that's needed. So if our counselors feel like they need additional support, they know who to contact. We meet on a monthly basis, and they're going to be supporting our students and staff in that manner. Our SROs are well trained also. They know the signs, and they work very closely hand in hand with our school counselors to provide any kind of additional support that's needed. The next question is, what type of safety training do we have for staff? And so as Chief Juarez mentioned earlier, and I believe Sergeant Hickson, we have a lot of training that is happening either for our staffs, and again, we don't want to scare people too much, but we want them to be prepared. So we do trainings, the active shooter, how they need to handle their classes, what they need to do to stay calm, how they're going to get the communication. All of those things are happening internally with administration and our law enforcement. Please.
And just to add to that, from the high school perspective, if any of you all are parents of students at Somerton, you would have recently received through the parent technology channels a lockdown drill. In addition to the drills that we have, we provided a lockdown drill that systematically reviewed what steps we take place, what students are to do in alignment with the concept of run, hide, fight. That video was completed in collaboration with our SRO at Somerton, San Luis, and the Yuma Police Department. I was part of that video, and again, that served as a training video for our parents as well as our students and staff, so that folks knew and students knew what to do and how to respond in the midst of a lockdown.
Thank you. One of the other questions, how can parents be involved in safety discussions for our schools?
I can take that one. For this one, really be involved in your child's, in everything. you know, and not just be involved, be actively involved. Find out what they're doing, who their friends are, you know, who they're messaging, what kind of video games they're playing. Because a lot of information nowadays, they might seem that they might be playing a video game, but they're also chatting. There's a lot of features that are available now that when we were growing up, they didn't exist. So really be involved. Let them know that if they do have an electronic device, it is a privilege. You're able to get it and go over it. Really review it. Talk to them about how using it properly, using that proper etiquette, and just really be nosy. You know, they are. I mean, they're young. You know, so they really. I don't think they really understand the actual consequences that can come from a choice that they can make at that young age. So I mean, I have a 14-year-old that attends Somerton High School, and I mean, I'm constantly checking his phone, going through his social media. He really doesn't like it, but he understands why I do it. And I don't just say, let me do it because I'm your dad. I explain the reasoning behind it. Like I explain the why so that he can understand that. But really just be actively involved in everything. I keep my son busy playing sports. You know, that way he doesn't have that time to have those negative thoughts. So I would recommend put him in extracurricular activities. That way they're tired, and at the end of the day they want to go to bed. They're not going to be up, you know. So I mean that's a recommendation as a parent that I can share with you all.
Yeah, I think I can second that. I don't know that there's enough importance that's put into that as far as monitoring what your kids see and what they say and what they do. You guys asked that question, whether or not we can do random searches of a person's bag. Laws prohibit us from doing that. You as a parent, you have the full rights to go into your child's stuff and search it and make sure that they are not in harm's way. As much good information is on this and that your kids are exposed to, there's equally as much bad. Your kids are being pressured, they're being bullied, they may actually be the bullies themselves. It's really important that you guys grab a hold of your kids and pay attention to what they're looking at. That's why a lot of this stuff is happening. They're seeing these messages getting put out, and whether it's a kid that's doing it himself thinking it's a joke or not, they're putting people in harm's way. Whether it's your kids or them directly or the community, because one thing that Chief Juarez touched on is the relationships that all of the law enforcement up on this panel have. All the incidents that happened 2 weeks ago in San Luis, the reports that were made, you guys need to understand when those phone calls come in, every law enforcement that's on duty, they go flying to those situations, and when it turns out that it's just a joke, that young man or that young woman that put that information out there just put the entire community in danger, because now you have officers that would do anything to protect those kids to try to get there. And it's important to emphasize to them, like, these are not jokes. When law enforcement investigates these things, and we're going to, if it's found out that your children were involved in something like this, that you have to understand and explain to them, they are going to get in trouble. These are not joking matters. When stuff like this happens and a school is interrupted and it's locked down, it is actually a felony offense in the state of Arizona. So grab onto your kids and have a conversation with them. Let them know these are not joking times. And if you have to, take the phones away. If they're not being responsible enough, it's time to be a parent. Take the phones away.
So I'm not going to pretend that everyone comes from a household that has two, a mom and a dad that've been together forever, and they're home and the kids get home from school. That's not reality. Our students, and I can speak from experience. I've lived in Somerton for over 25 years. My kids were hawks. Sorry, Hema, they're not sun dragons, but they were cobras. Okay, and they went to school, Kofa, Cibola. They would have gone to Somerton High School but wasn't around, and I'm so glad we have Somerton High School here. We're so lucky as a community. However, we're a working community, all right? Let's be honest. We have people working in the fields, doing irrigation late at night. They're too tired when they get home. We have mom and dad potentially trying to find daycare. When you as a parent don't know what to do, you have to reach out to your school. I can tell you right now, the elementary school district is more than happy to take those questions like, what do I do as a parent? As a high school district, we're more than happy to say, we can help you. Let's get you in the right point in the right direction with our healthcare providers for social mental health, with our counselors, our social workers, with SROs, law enforcement. But parents, don't be afraid to come forward and say, listen, I don't know what to do with my child. We're there to help you. From kindergarten all the way, I see Dr. Zabrano here, even AWC, there's avenues there for everyone to get help. But we don't want to kid ourselves and say everything's happy. When you're a parent and struggling and you need help, reach out to us. We're here to help you and hopefully get you pointed in the right direction so your child will be college, career, community prepared, and they'll be successful and hopefully maybe work for one of our districts one day.
Yeah, great. We got a couple more questions. Are there any ideas on getting parents to volunteer on campus, such as Watchdogs, which is dads of great students? That is a great idea, just to involve more parents within our schools, right? The process of getting volunteers within our schools, we can definitely support. Training for that particular role, that would be something that we would have to explore. I don't know if someone else would want to just add on to that, but the process of inviting parents to be volunteers, they don't have to be watchdogs or guards, but they can be involved within our schools to be in the environment of learning and where their kids are thriving and, you know, being friends and getting into like these little fights with their friends and whatnot. That we can support so that you are able to see the dynamic and see the, you know, the plans that we do have as a district to ensure that they're safe. To prepare them to be guards or security in that sense, that's something that we definitely would have to explore. All right. Another question that came up was, what did we learn from the experience from San Luis? It was in Spanish. So what did we learn? I don't know if someone wants to expand. A couple of weeks ago, everything that happened in San Luis really kind of sparked, for us, it added on to the idea of making sure that we close our schools. I can give you a little bit of information from our behalf. For me, when I was able to go down there and support Gadsden and the reunification of the students, right? So students from Southwest had to be moved to a different school, and that whole process was pretty intense. I'll be honest, when I left El Pastor, where the parents were reunifying with their students, it just broke my heart to see that whole process. It was really heartbreaking to see it. So as I was driving back home, I called, you know, Chief, and that's where the trust, right? We trust the Chief and the system, you know, wholeheartedly. And I mentioned, this is what's happening, you know, in San Luis, and she's like, I'm very well informed, you know, I've been part of the debriefing conversation. And I said, well, we have these plans, we're probably keeping our schools in soft lockdown. And that's when she said, Calderon, I'll be honest with you, my recommendation would be to close the school for 2 days. Great. So that's in the direction that we moved. So what did we learn? We learned to continue to have that open communication with those who have more information than we do. And what did we do those 2 days? We sat down as an administrative team and started looking to see how to make sure that we, in the event that this ever was to happen, hopefully never, what would be our plans to reunify our students with their parents. So those are things that we are working through, and this year we're definitely going to be putting some practices in place for that particular drill. I don't know if anyone else wants to add on to this. No. All right, so we are over the hour, and I want to be respectful of your evening. There are more questions that we are committed to answering through a newsletter. Some of the questions are very campus specific. So what we're going to do, we're going to give these questions to the principals so that you are able to respond to them in the form of PTO, PTL, and more than anything, Ms. Kim and myself, we will be available to support you guys in those particular forums as well. All right. So thank you so much for you guys this time, for being here, for being interested in the security and safety of our community. And if we can give a big round of applause to all of our panelists, please. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Thank you. Thank you.
Always such a good showing.